Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 442. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and I'm excited to have with us the acclaimed and internationally celebrated author of The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, Julie Wignall. Julie.
Hi, Barney. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. See, and we were talking beforehand. So before even we started the interview, we were talking about, with the title Fireflies, is it fireflies or lightning bugs? And you said you're team Firefly.
Just because it's easier to say.
Yes.
And it kind of rolls off. But yes. Fireflies, lightning bugs, either they're a beetle. So
that's
they're
right.
Not really a fly. And I don't really think of them as a bug. They're a beetle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And fireflies, there are over 2,000 different species of fireflies. And what a lot of people don't know is that they glow in different colors. I mean, this is a family that accepts or really embraces a large amount of diversity. They glow in the yellow, the green that we're used to, but they're blue and red and orange and little bits of everything. And you're in Vermont. One of the things that a lot of people don't know, fireflies are magical, which is why I wrote about them in the first place. And, they take us back to when we were kids and anything was possible, before we became what I call enculturated, people telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing, what we should like, what we shouldn't like. And a lot of times people say, yeah, but how could I as one person just make any difference? And I say, let's think about the power of one firefly that you see it flying and lighting up in the dusk at night. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are two places in the world, one of them in the United States in the Smoky Mountains, and the other one is in Malaysia, where fireflies, they call them synchronous fireflies, and they light up in the hundreds, and they connect with each other and they communicate through the flashing lights that they do. It's an incredible experience. I mean, imagine a forest. Well, first of all, it becomes really dark, and these species tend to come out later at night. But the first thing you tend to see is all of a sudden there are these blue lights along the forest floor. They look like landing lights from an airport. And then you look up and the forest is so dark, you can barely see your fingertips on your arms. And you turn around and all of a sudden the whole entire forest lights up as 100, 200 fireflies flash in unison. And then, as amazing as that is, all of a sudden there's another group of 100 to 200 fireflies that answer them. And then there's another group and another group. It's like walking into an enchanted fairy tale. It's just a wow, once in a lifetime experience that I would love everybody to have. It really reminds you that there's magic in the world.
That's amazing, Julie. And I want to ask you a question because about your book. Your book is not an entomological book. It's not a it's not a science book, because you actually kind of have fireflies as a symbol. So what's the central message, would you say, of the extraordinary power of fireflies?
I use fireflies as a metaphor.
Okay.
And I incorporate natural history throughout the book in terms of information about fireflies back to that metaphor for people. And the concept and the whole purpose of the book is that we all need to start shining brighter. The world is waiting for us to shine our light. And that's a metaphor, but I have to tell you, scientifically, scientists have shown that we glow. People actually glow. We do have a light. But as a metaphor, each of us has an individual light to shine. And we have special skills, we have special talents that are just unique to us, that if we use them and we step into that bigger light, it makes the world a better place. And as we do that, and if more and more people do that together, then we become like those synchronous fireflies where we truly do light up the world. in unison.
Okay. Now, is there a? Do you want to share a story from the book that kind of particularly resonates with you?
Sure. That will. Okay. So my concept of fireflies, and I actually define a firefly of the humankind
Okay.
as someone who sees beyond what is to what could be. And what makes them different, what makes them shine their light is that they actually take action.
Mm.
They don't wait. They don't wait for governments to change. They don't wait for people to give them permission. A firefly doesn't get permission to shine. It shines because it can. And that's what we need all of us to do. And the concept is that there are many different paths to the top of that mountain. We don't all always have to follow that straight and narrow line. I mean, face it, as an adult, look around and say, how many adults do you know where their life turned out exactly as they planned? Um, Life takes twists and turns, and there are obstacles, but the concept is there are many different paths, there are many different doors to open to get us to different places. So I've had a very, very unconventional background with a career that has ranged from everything, well, from leaving school at 14 to attending college at 16. This was not because I was at the top of the class. It was because I did things differently, but working in national politics and international business, and working within environmental conservation for many, many years, and with zoos and aquariums and museums. So I took a really unconventional path. When I wrote the book, what I thought was, if I were reading my book, I'd go, oh, well, that's good for her. She can do all these things. But what about the rest of us? So what I've done is I've put 20 different people, individuals, groups from around the world that are all what I would classify as fireflies. They are all lighting up the world in different ways, doing amazing things. An example of this is, well, let me introduce you to Fabio Chavez. Fabio lives in Paraguay. He was working as kind of a engineer in a landfill. And this is in one of the poorest areas in Paraguay. And Fabio always loved music, and he played music, but he wasn't what you would say is a professional musician. But he looked at the kids there and the families, as I said, they were so poor, and they were poor, but they're not stupid. They would create their homes out of things that they found from the landfills, which was really pretty amazing. And Fabio thought, I would love to take these kids, give them a different future through music. I could
Mm.
create an orchestra. And that was the thought. And like so many other people, then the next thought became, oh, if I could just find someone to donate all this money to me, we could buy musical instruments for all of these kids. And then he thought a little bit more, and he went, okay, we're in a very, very poor area. If somebody gave me $1 million and said, oh, buy instruments and share them with all these kids, what would happen to them? You know, it's a very poor area. Chances are they'd be stolen after the first night. So instead, he went, these people are very, very innovative. Let me go to them. And he collaborated with some of the locals, and they started making musical instruments from the trash that was in the landfill. I mean, they made violins out of discarded license plates. They timpani drums, where the sides of the drums are actually discarded giant X-rays,
Huh.
and put the whole thing together. And he created an orchestra. They're absolutely brilliant. They're known as the Recycled Orchestra of Paraguay. Now, picture this. Fabio wanted to encourage them, so they play any kind of music. He introduced them to classical music, to jazz, modern. Well, the kids loved the group Metallica. So they started playing some of the songs of Metallica, and Fabio said, write them a letter, let them know what you do. And the next thing they knew, Metallica went to visit them. And
Huh.
they actually had the opportunity to open for Metallica. They had the chance to travel. And again, remember, this is a place that's so poor. It took them months to even find the proper paperwork so that the kids could get passports because they didn't have proper birth certificates. But they ended up opening for Metallica. They went on to open for Stevie Wonder. Today, they travel around the world on their own. The coolest thing about them is that when they perform, Fabio has them all wearing T-shirts. That when they turn around, the back of their T-shirts say, which is Fabio's one of his big mottos: "The world sends us trash, and we send back music."
Huh.
Which to me is just what a great way to live. And he's also taught the kids that having nothing is no excuse for doing nothing.
Huh.
And so, Fabio has done this through music. Some of the people I've written about have done this through introducing the cooking of different cultures through a World Refugee Festival, through restaurants, to people who I have a nurse who realized how much was getting wasted from hospitals. And she got permission from the hospital to work on a recycling program. And she ended up starting her own organization where they now provide for people in need for basic medical supplies.
Wow.
And she runs just, we're familiar with Doctors Without Borders. She does the same similar type of thing where they just bring very, very general health care to different places around the world.
Right.
So the concept is there are people everywhere that are really doing amazing things and are incredible inspiration if we just open our eyes. And I've written about these people all over the world, saying it doesn't matter where you are. But the truth is we all have people like this in our own communities. Right. That need to be recognized for who they are and what they are and what they're doing, that are going above and beyond, the person who's fostering animals for a local animal rescue, the person who is fostering children and, working through different volunteer programs to help things out. There are a lot of reasons to be hopeful, I believe, and to be inspired for the future of the world. But the future of the world is what we design, which is why it becomes so important to stand up and stand into your light. And really, my book was written to be a call to action, to say it's enough standing on the sidelines with your hopes and your dreams and your wishes, and it's time to take action because the world needs you. The world needs every person's unique skills and abilities.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So Julie, what did you learn about yourself putting this book together?
Well, because I had such a different background, and I didn't follow the conventional path. People go, you have to go through A to B to C to D, and it's like, well, those doors didn't really open. So I kind of did a paradigm shift and went through this door or that door. I've had so many people who say, I've got this great idea and I tried it, but all the doors closed in my face. So I took that as a sign that, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like, no, the sign is to turn, pivot, and shift and try a new door, which is part of what I've done throughout my entire career. And I felt like it was time to share what I had learned. And it's time to peel back certain layers of things we're told, the grandmother myths, why do we believe A, B, C, or D? And to give you a bit of an understanding about that, I am currently in crazy Las Vegas, Nevada, a place I never thought I'd end up. I was actually once upon a time very well respected, coming up as a biologist. I ran the National Aquarium in Washington, D.C., and I worked with the Smithsonian Institution and the National Zoo. I worked with some major national and international nonprofit organizations. And what I noticed, though, was we spent our entire time fundraising. And as soon as one fundraising cycle was over, it's like, now can we get to work and do the things that we set out to do to change the world? And it's like, yeah, we got to do the next fundraising cycle. And to give you an idea of how poor we were as an aquarium, this was a small aquarium. I had an education staff that used to say, Julie, what's our budget for next month? We'd really like to do A, B, C, and D. And we had a wishing well in front of the aquarium. And I'd say, all the pennies in there, they're all yours. And however much it is, that's going to be your budget for next month. And some of the things that I realized was you're good at biology, you're good at one piece teaching or something else, and you keep moving up the ladder. That doesn't necessarily give you fundraising skills, management skills. It certainly doesn't give you the leadership skills that are needed to go forward. And at the time, I was like, we're always waiting. We're always doing fundraising. And I kept looking at all these businesses and I kept saying, they've got a lot of money. But in the environmental world, you start talking about big business. These are big, mean, greedy corporations. And those are, turn your head, don't even look at them. We've got to do what we've got to do. And I started thinking, and it dawned on me one day that corporations aren't greedy and big businesses aren't greedy. People are greedy. And people working within corporations can be greedy. People working within nonprofits can be greedy. So if there are these people who are big, bad, and greedy, couldn't there also be people who are generous and have a good code of ethics and are looking to accomplish things with their business? And then I started thinking, what if you take someone like me, who is an environmental conservationist, and you pair them up with big business and corporate America? Would it work, and could you make a difference? And through that was born the concept of unlikely partnerships. And that's what brought me to Las Vegas. I had the opportunity to collaborate with a multimillionaire who at the time saw an opportunity to change the face of Las Vegas. And with that, he wanted a whole zoological facility with marine animals. And then they were performing. I'd never worked with performing animals before, but we had the animals of Siegfried and Roy. They're lions and tigers and elephants and snow leopard. And it was like, this is crazy. This is Las Vegas. We've got a zoo. But here were these people who had all this money. And there were certain things it bought. There were certain things it didn't buy. When I said we need food for the animals, it was the best. And I didn't have to worry about scraping the bottom of the barrel to get by. They had the best care. They had the best veterinary care. Normally you need to have two veterinarians that are there, one to back up the other. I could say, no, I need three veterinarians for each place. I had people, because we could afford it, that I had paid to come in as consultants once a week just to check me, because I was working, and a lot of times you miss things because you're just there every day. So it was just to have an outside set of eyes that would say, hey, let's take a look at this, or maybe you need to start thinking about repainting this or maintenance or whatever, but just to add to what we were offering. And so imagine this in Las Vegas. And working with this multimillionaire, we built what was considered at the time one of the top animal facilities for dolphins in the middle of the desert. And I came up with so many rules and stipulations of what we had to do and needed to do. And we need to provide education programs for students. We can't open until 11 in the morning. I don't need your people from hotels and casinos walking through here. Okay. I need a special entrance that comes through here. Okay. All of these things that we asked for, we got. So it turned out, by pairing with this big Fortune 500 company, not only was I able to provide the ultimate in care in terms of animals, and get these people on board with me, but then it expanded. I had the opportunity to double check everything that we were selling in our retail shops. You can't be saying that you're taking care of animals if you're selling fur coats in your retail area. We were the first place out here that didn't serve fur, or didn't sell fur in terms of our restaurants. Sustainable seafood. Let's replace this with this. And because we developed such a reputation for environmental practices, I also had the opportunity to work both nationally and internationally on helping to set up international coral reef alliances, and getting some base information and supporting science and science around the world. So think about that. That didn't come from governments. That didn't come from, and it came from somebody who was like-minded,
Right.
who had a vision as well. And so my concept is when we partner and we share what we do and we find like-minded people, then we're like those fireflies that are all shining in synchronicity. Then we really start changing the world together on a huge, huge level.
So who'd you say this book is for?
This book is for everyone. This book is for anyone who has ever said, I have a dream, or if I had the opportunity, I would love to do this, but I don't know how. And I'm not sure how to move forward or what to do. It's a community. I've written lessons that I've learned with my experience. I've added the experiences of other people who are doing this around the world as inspiration. But in addition, because I want anybody who's reading this book to take it and put what I've written into action, at the end of every chapter, there's actually an exercise to say, okay, now it's your turn. Let's take what you've done and let's see how you can put it forward in the world. So for me, I am delighted. I've worked with high school students. I've worked with university students. I've worked with adults of all different ages. And the concept is we need to think differently. We need to move past outdated systems and things that don't work anymore. Not that long ago, I did a workshop for a group of public artists and in Michigan, and I said the concept is you need to begin to think differently. We need to stop with kids telling them, what they can't do, or you can do that as a hobby. We start when kids are in elementary school and we say to them, oh, you can grow up to be anything that you want to be. And all of a sudden you hit high school and say, okay, I think I'd like to be this or this or this. And it's like, oh, honey, you can't do that. It's like, you need to go this way. And it's when that kid comes to you as a teenager and says, oh, I want to be an artist or whatever, instead of saying, oh, no, you don't want to be the starving artist, which is a myth, to say, okay, well, let's work on what are the skills and the talents that you need to make it as that artist. That was part of, working on the workshops that I give, to say so you want to be an artist, you want to be a creative person. You know very, very well as a writer, you write a book, you need to be thinking, or writing is like a business. And if people don't know that you've written anything, it's not going anywhere. You could be a great artist, but if all you're doing is putting things out on the internet or selling to your local community, you're not going as far as you can go. We need to start thinking bigger. So what do you need if you want to be an artist? You also need to understand the business of arts, and you need to understand the marketing of art. One of a favorite story of mine that I actually wrote about during the pandemic, picture this, one of the people I wrote about is a filmmaker. And Christian Nelson had his very, very first opportunity. He was just hired on to become a director of a film. And of course, the pandemic came and the investors got nervous and everybody backed away and he was left with nothing. And you go, this is devastating. Well, he was talking to a friend who was a podcaster. And the two of them began talking, and he said, I had some choices. I could either just sit and say, I have to wait it out. This is miserable. Or I could figure out how to go down another path, how to be a little bit unconventional. And Chris and this friend of his wrote, it was a short film called Unsubscribe. And what was brilliant about this was, first of all, it was just a very, very short film. They filmed it just using Zoom on the internet. He edited it, put it together. But what made this so brilliant is that Chris understood the business of filmmaking. It wasn't just the art of filmmaking, putting it together. He understood the business. So in filmmaking, there is a concept called four-walling, where you could take your film and take it to a local movie theater and pay a certain amount for them to show your film. And then whatever comes in as the proceeds, people paying to go see the film, goes directly back to you. Well, if you're just an artist that hasn't done all the work of everything around, you don't necessarily know that. Chris knew that. It's the pandemic. Certainly nobody's going to come and show up to see the film, but he also knew that because of the pandemic, nobody was going to go see films anywhere. So he made a deal with a local theater. They gave him the theater for free because it wasn't being used anyway. And nobody's coming in. So it wasn't like he was going to get money back. Nobody lost money. They simply just ran this for free. And when you read those box office statistics every week, who's the top grossing film? What's the top playing film in the country and the world and here and there? Well, they fed the information in from the box office, from the theater, and his homemade film, Unsubscribe, became the #1 film in the country.
Wow.
Because nothing else was playing. So that's the concept of being a bit unconventional, following a different path to accomplish the same thing. And what it did was it gave him notoriety because, of course, everybody wanted to interview this person who, how did you do this? This is crazy. It's something that anyone could do if they knew all of the different aspects of the field that they were trying to go into.
Wow. Now, so if people want to learn more about your book, Julie, where is the best place they could go to?
Absolutely. Any place where books are sold, even through my website, will take you just straight to Amazon. But Barnes and Noble, any bookshop can sell it through the website, which is just extraordinaryfireflies.com. There is a download that is free, however.
Okay.
That's the Flying Lessons for Fireflies, how to shine your light, how to start shining your light right now. It gives you 5 free exercises to get started, like right now. And what it does is it has you join the community, because as soon as you download it, you get put on our mailing list. And the mailing list sends out just once a week, because I don't like overdosing anybody with too much information. Once a week, a short piece that gets emailed to you, a note of inspiration and encouragement that just says, keep going. And that makes you part of the community. And part of the most wonderful feedback that I've gotten is I get notes every week from people who go, thank you. This is just what I needed to hear. But I think one of the big lessons that we have today, there's so much that's online and people feel very disconnected, is the concept of building community. And that's exactly what I'm working at doing through the book, through connecting people all over the place to say you're part of something that's bigger.
Is there a sequel book coming out anytime?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I am currently working on an exhibit that
Okay.
that accompanies the book to travel to go. I think people need encouragement,
Mm,
and like I said, to give people the opportunity to start reconnecting,
okay.
and that could lead to anything.
Julie, thank you for coming on. I had a wonderful conversation talking to you. I've learned so much. This is it's inspiring. I love it when I talk to inspiring authors that just make you want to go out and just like be a better version of yourself. So,
Thanks. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Nah.
so I was literally in my 20s. No, I'm sorry, in my 30s, Julie, when I actually questioned something my grandmother said, because it was one of those things, with your grandparents are like, so this is entomological adjacent. So there's a reason I'm bringing it up before we talk about the fireflies. I remember my grandmother told me that if you ever tell a lie in front of a dragonfly, it'll sew your mouth shut. And I you can Google this like this is like an old like it's like an old wives thing, like it's like an old,
Wow.
so it's somewhere, it's like a Northern European thing where they would say that. And I really wasn't until it was always in the back of my mind until I was in my 30s, because I remember I was outside one time, I saw a dragonfly, I'm like, I better watch out what I'm saying. And I thought about it in my adult life, I'm like, wait a minute, all right, first of all, it would have to understand the English language. Second of all, it would have to understand your life and know what you're saying is truth or not.
Right.
And third, it would have to be fast enough to come in and sew your mouth. Like this. Sorry, I was literally in my 30s when I realized that my grandmother was lying to me.
That's funny. I'm going to think about that because we have right now a ton of red dragonflies that are outside at the moment. So
Yeah.
next time I go out and I see one of those, I'm going to think about this and your grandmother and, and go, it's kind of a good thing that they don't do that.
I know.